Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here in our downtown studios, and we're going to venture down the road a ways and spend a little time with Dr. Charles Ballard, our good friend from the Department of Economics at Michigan State University. Professor Ballard, how are you?
Doing very well. The sun is shining, and I can tell you, just in the last few weeks, we've gotten back. My wife and I have gotten back to doing things that we used to do regularly, but then hadn't done for a year. Going out and eating in restaurants indoors, going to church in person, not on Zoom. And I got to tell you that most things are better in person than on Zoom, even though you and I are meeting on Zoom right now. But
that's all right. I know exactly what you're saying, and I miss those things dearly. And
yeah.
we'll be having in person before you know it.
Well, I think we're definitely headed in the right direction. You see, the vaccination rates are up, and the infection and hospitalization rates are down. So keep our fingers crossed. I think we're doing the right thing here.
I do too, and I'm in the governor's corner on the fact that she depended on science. What was the economic toll through this whole thing?
Huge dislocation, especially, of course, in leisure and hospitality and travel and tourism. Those were the sectors that just got hammered by the lockdowns. Good news, we've come back a long way. The employment losses in April of 2020 were the biggest in American history for a 1 month, and then we've made about 2/3 of those jobs back. In fact, I think we're on track to get more of them back in the coming months, because as more and more people get comfortable about going back to work, I'm talking about people who work in restaurants and bars and hotels. Many of us who could do our work online, it didn't make much of a difference. But if you had to have in-person contact, some people are staying away from the job market because they're afraid. And also, a lot of people have had their childcare arrangements disrupted. But I see those getting better and better as we go through the second half of this year. So I'm optimistic that we'll be able to finish undoing the damage. In fact, in a lot of ways, the damage has already been undone, because the gross domestic product is back to where it was.
Yeah. So listen, with you, we always start like local Michigan, then we go to national. We're thinking of adding intergalactic because you're so good, Charlie. But let's talk about the national, because to help this thing, it's a little reminiscent of the Franklin Roosevelt era, when the government came forward with a whole lot of cash and opportunity to kind of bail us. Tell me about that, and will that work?
Well, it's I think that the stimulus measures that have been undertaken have been fairly successful, not perfect, but I think this recession would have been much worse without the stimulus. Now, for the first time in like 30 or 40 years, people are talking about the possibility of inflation, and it is true that prices are going to have risen in the last year more than they had over much of the last generation or so. And then the question is that going to be a long-term problem, or after we get the supply chains back in place in the next few months, will that basically be a thing of the past? Federal Reserve has said that they believe, and they're monitoring the data as closely as they can, but they think a lot of this is temporary. We've had supply disruptions. Lumber is an obvious one. Increased demand for home improvement and construction, and the supply chain was messed up. I think this is likely to be temporary. Here's an amazing statistic. Usually in a recession, all of the economic indicators go in more or less the same direction. Well, this employment is down, but income is actually up because enough people got those stimulus checks and enhanced unemployment benefits that more than made up the losses in terms of lost jobs.
All right, so this is a great segue to the international scene,
Yeah.
and we don't have much time left. But how are we in this position with these computer chips and the staggering effect they've had on not just the auto industry but many industries?
Well, I think a lot of businesses are. We went to just-in-time inventory and we went to long supply chains. And I think a lot of businesses are in the process of reworking their models of production to try to make sure that the next time there's a major interruption like this, they've got a little bit more leeway. You and I are, for the most part, very much in favor of international economic connections. But when there's a disruption, and you've got a supply chain that involves 15 different countries, that can cause you a problem. And I think businesses are going to be tiptoeing toward new structures as over the next few years.
I think you're right. I think we agree. We love international trade, but not to the point of vulnerability.
Yeah,
We are.
good way to put it.
Charlie, it is always good to spend time with you, my friend. From the economics department at MSU, Professor Charles Ballard. You take care, my friend. Give my best to June, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks very much.
All right. You're watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holm.